Mighty tough, able to withstand attack.
Welcome to the boxer.
Scott Morrison's upping Australia's defences while commanding the armed forces to be more assertive, albeit in increasingly uncertain times.
The risk of miscalculation and even conflict is heightening.
Shape, deter, respond is the new catchphrase, a reshaping of priorities pummeled by a pandemic.
A post-COVID world that is poorer, that is more dangerous, and that is more disorderly.
A 10-year, $270 billion defence spend, giving the ADF more potent strike capacity over longer distances, at sea, in the air and on land, along with a greater focus on new domains of cyber and space. Australia will buy long-range anti-ship missiles from the US, with billions to be spent developing hypersonic weapons. A network of undersea surveillance sensors underscoring a new emphasis on Australia's own backyard.
The Indo-Pacific is the epicentre of rising strategic competition.
The reason? China. Beijing's expansionism in the South China Sea, its nationalistic assertiveness under Xi Jinping. But in the midst of the COVID-induced world recession, the Prime Minister sees a historic comparison.
When the global and regional order collapsed in the 1930s and 1940s. That is a sobering thought.
The person who raises Nazis loses the debate. I think that quite often that is the case.
If you look at the behaviour of China, annexing territories, suppressing minorities, there's an echo of history that we can't ignore.
Beijing will more than bristle at the comparison between China's rise and fascist Germany. It won't have missed Scott Morrison's alignment of his regional diplomatic focus and the defence effort. The PM's Pacific step-up now comes with military backup. So if our part of the world is the epicentre of a strategic wrestle between China and the United States, Australia will be in the thick of it. Andrew Probyn, ABC News, Canberra.
So what do you get for $270 billion? To start with, 800 new recruits. The ADF will add 50 extra personnel to the Army, 100 to the Air Force and 650 to the Navy. Those Navy recruits will be the beneficiary of a $75 billion spend on maritime defences. That'll include the purchase of the AGM-158C long-range anti-ship missile. It comes at a price of $800 million, and it'll more than double the range of Australia's anti-ship capability. Over 10 times that will go into high-speed missile development. And $5 to $7 billion will be spent on a massive underwater surveillance system. The ADF's air capabilities will also expand, with $65 billion poured into air combat and long-range strike capability. $10 to $17 billion of this money will be invested into fighter aircraft. Land forces won't lose out either. $70 billion will be spent on expanding combat power, with money funneled into drones and long-range rocket artillery. Off the battlefield, online warfare will receive a funding boost. $15 billion will be spent on military cyber warfare, including intelligence and information warfare. And to watch over all ADF operations, $7 billion will go towards improving space-based defence capabilities, including an independent Australian satellite network.
Well, there are many strategic implications from today's defence announcement. Foreign Affairs reporter Stephen Jedgetts joins me now from Parliament House. Stephen, what does this mean for great powers like the United States and China, as well as Australia's Pacific neighbours?
Well, look, the implications for the United States are pretty complicated. On the one hand, Australia's making it pretty clear today that we won't automatically join US-led coalitions of the willing for overseas conflicts like we did in Iraq and Afghanistan. So in some sense, that's a blow for the US. On the other hand, the US may be glad that Australia is pouring more money into defence rather than just leaving it up to Washington to do all the heavy lifting in the region. As for China, well, it's already issued a pretty tepid statement. Its Ministry of Foreign Affairs in Beijing has simply said that countries shouldn't procure unnecessary military equipment. Now, that's all well and good, but it's worth bearing in mind that Beijing is engaging in a massive military build-up of its own, so it's difficult for China to criticise Australia for investing in defence. And then finally, for the Pacific, well, again, it's a pretty complicated story. On the one hand, most Pacific leaders have made it clear that they're happy with an increased tempo of Australian defence missions in the Pacific, particularly when it comes to disaster relief. But on the other hand, they have also said that there's some anxiety in the region about the possibility of a military build-up. They're anxious about being caught between the great powers, particularly in case there is a shooting war. And so that anxiety may temper some of their enthusiasm for Scott Morrison's announcement today.